real quick video here. I want to talk about pruning azaleas primarily, but the same rules apply for rhododendrons. They're really both in the same family, but basically I'm going to show you just a couple different varieties of azaleas. But you know, because people ask me a lot, I'll give you the crash course on both rhododendrons and azaleas. They like a really well-drained soil. They don't like where it's going to be wet and soggy, and they don't like a lot of fertilizer. So if you want your rhododendrons and azaleas to be happy, the ideal thing to do is plant them in a bed where there's good rich topsoil, or you've raised the bed and worked in a lot of organic matter, you know, compost or rotted cow manure or something. That'll make them happy. You don't need all kinds of store-bought fertilizers for them. They don't like it. Azaleas bloom. This is an evergreen azalea. Basically, there's two kinds of azaleas that you're going to encounter. Most people see and are used to this. This is an evergreen azalea. This one over here is deciduous. It loses its leaves in the winter. But the big question people always have is, when do I prune my azaleas? Well, ideally, the ideal time to prune them is right after they bloom, because these flower buds, they started making them last year. So if you trim them during the growing season or later in the growing season, you're going to cut off a lot of flower buds. However, I prune whenever I think something needs pruning, and I'll give you an example of what would happen. This plant has a couple of branches up here, and in order to make me happy so this plant grows nice and full and compact, I would have pruned this just about like this sometime last summer had I had it in my landscape. You can see I'm not being super selective, and I cut off a bunch of flower buds. But I still have plenty of flower buds. So don't, keep putting it off, because had I not pruned it, take it, for instance, this plant, these couple branches need pruned a little bit. And the reason I prune them so tight like that is so when they get new growth, they fill out and they're nice and full. But you can see on this plant, and I'm going to get these out of the way so it doesn't, you can see that there's some branches sticking up here. Now, if you wait to prune these and then miss your window, forget about it, get busy, they're going to put on new growth way up here. And that's all wasted. So if you get them cut back nice and tight, then they'll start filling out, and you'll have, and that's really important with young plants when you put in your landscape. Don't be afraid to trim them. Most people are afraid to trim. That's a huge problem. You can do a lot more harm by not pruning than pruning. You know, pruning is like getting a bad haircut. If it's a bad haircut, it'll grow out. The same thing with pruning. You rarely can do serious damage to a plant by pruning it too much. So with azaleas, ideally prune them right after they bloom, but if you miss that window of time and they need pruning, prune them. You'll be doing them a favor. You'll be doing yourself a favor. This plant is it's called a Exberry mollis azalea. It's a deciduous azalea. The ones I just showed you are evergreens. And typically you see a lot of evergreen azaleas. They're red, they're white, they're pink, they're purple. These Exberry seedless azaleas, Exberry mollis azaleas, they lose their leaves during the winter. They are not an evergreen, but they flower in either orange, or there's a couple of shades of red, and there's some yellow. So they grow taller, more like an upright shrub, and they bloom in a different variety of colors. Typically, these are a little bit harder to find, but they're out there. So evergreen azaleas, deciduous azalea. Pruning is the same thing. You can prune them ideally right after they bloom, or you can prune them whenever they need it. You're not going to hurt them. The only thing you can do is lose a few flower buds, but you won't lose them all. That's your crash course on taking care and growing and pruning azaleas.